Mike Palm in studio, VP of Operations here at Circa Resort and Casino, where we're broadcasting from, where it is time for drum roll. Palm's pressing 3. Let's do it.
All right, Michael. In Arrowhead on Sunday, we had a rematch, 23 months removed from the 13 seconds game, I call it, between the Chiefs and the Bills. Again, the Bills are in the lead, 1:20 to go. 2nd and 10 from the Bills' 49. The Chiefs run a beautiful play, actually. Hits Kelsey for 25 yards, and then Kelsey sprints left and hits Tony on a line on a lateral, and he sprints to the end zone. Obviously, we know the call. Offensive offsides. Tony's a full yard lined up over the ball. The reaction of Mahomes and Andy Reid to this I found to be despicable. Mahomes standing there shouting profanities at the official, his interaction with Josh Allen at midfield. Andy Reid saying this is an embarrassing moment for the NFL. Are the reactions of those two gentlemen, Mahomes and Andy Reid, indicative of a bigger problem inside of this burgeoning dynasty that is the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of frustration because I don't see how Andy Reid could have said what he said. Andy Reid's usually not that way. And Mahomes later apologized. We had on the Daily Coach, we have a community where we do a bunch of phone calls. And this week we were fortunate to get Pat Lencioni, the author of 13 books, come in and talk to our group. And we asked Pat this question as a leadership expert and as a management consultant. Pat wrote the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And Pat honestly said, he said, Mahomes will come back and apologize because this was more emotional about other things than the call. And he was right. And I agree with him, and I agree with you. I think there's frustration with they're so used to being able to turn on the car and have it go 100 miles an hour that they don't understand why they're going 40. And it's frustrating to them, and they're working hard at it. The line that drove me crazy is when Mahomes said after the game, everybody on this team, we work so hard, we do everything. Every other team does the same thing. They're not entitled to any advantages. I mean, you get an advantage because your right tackle's lined up in the backfield. I put a tweet out the other day where Chris Jones is offsides. They don't call that. If you go look, Mike, at the play they called offsides on, the right tackle's in the backfield. I was talking to a coach in the league, and they said they've accepted that the Chiefs are going to be in a legal formation at least 10 to 12 times a game.
Well, and what made it funnier to me was that Patrick Mahomes at the end of the game, when he is talking to the media, he says, it's another one of those games where we're talking about officials. That's not what we want for the game. When ultimately the call was right. Like, that's the thing is, I understand, like, the week prior, like, it's a blatant PI call. That was rough.
They missed 4 straight calls in that game, both ways. But 4 straight calls Brad Allen's crew missed. The hit out of bounds when he's fully in bounds right at the sticks. Now, you can say they're supposed to let him play, but he's on his back with the ball in his stomach. That gets Pacheco ejected because of the run-up with the whole thing. The PI, which was ridiculous, he climbed his whole back. And then stopping the clock when forward progress was stopped in bounds and took 3 steps backwards right in front of him.
Yep.
They screwed up 4 straight calls. Discussing that would have been more appropriate than this call, which they had no leg to stand on.
Which I do appreciate, again, though, that, like you said, Michael, that he did come out and he walked it back a little bit, said that wasn't the right way to respond. Okay, question 2.
Michael, if you were conciliary to Virginia McCaskey, what advice would you give her about how to handle this offseason for the Bears? Their recent resurgence, I think, makes things a little stickier than we might have thought.
I don't think it does. I think, to me, you got to give Eberflus credit for the job that he's done in terms of holding the team together. And so if you feel compelled, and probably should, to run this back another year with Eberflus and Poles, agreed. But we should continue to talk up Fields as much as we can. We should continue to highlight Fields because it isn't whether we want to keep Fields or we don't. The question really is, do we want to pay Fields $40 million or not? And the answer to that is no. Same problem in Miami. You love Tua now because he's on a rookie deal. You ready to pay Tua $50 million a year? Are you? You ready to pay Fields $40 million a year? Because these guys aren't going for cheap now. They're not going to go for nothing. I mean, we saw Daniel Jones get $40 million. Why shouldn't Justin Fields get 40? We saw Daniel Jones get 40. Why shouldn't Tua get 50? So are you going to pay him $50 million a year and know what you're getting? Of course you're not. Why not take a rookie contract? But you could get something for Fields. There's enough teams out there that could see the positives in Fields and overlook the negatives. So for me, if I were advising Virginia McCaskey, I would say, okay, I think Eberflus deserves credit for what he's been able to keep the team together. Do I want these guys making the decision on the quarterback of the future? That's the one we got to really talk about. But we're going to have to get a quarterback of the future.
Who's done a better coaching job on the turnaround, Peyton or Eberflus?
I think Peyton has done a better job because the one thing about Peyton is he took a team that was 0-3 and with a quarterback that was let Russ cook, that had this huge persona, and flipped the narrative, only letting him throw the ball. He's thrown the ball, Mike, for the lowest amount in his career yards per game at 200. He's actually run for the third most first downs after 13 weeks than he did in his entire career. 47 was the most first downs he ran for in his career. He's got 31 right now. 37 is the second most. He'll beat that. So he's gotten him to run, and he's played complementary football. I think Eberflus has done a really good job, but the expectations are lower, and he's been able to keep it together.
My concern with the Eberflus of it all, and I do think it's great that especially defensively what they've been able to do here late in the season, turn things around. But like if things continue to be bad next year, then you have a rookie quarterback coming in and another potential coaching turnover. That's not a recipe for success for a young guy either.
No, that's the concern, and that's what I said. The real issue is, do we want these guys picking the quarterback, and do we want these guys coaching the quarterback? See, that's the problem. Are you better off? And Kevin Warren's going to have the huge say in this because he's going to want to basically control them. I mean, he wants to bring in his guys, let's face it. And so we'll see, but I think what you got to give credit where credit is due. He's held it together. I still don't think the Sweat. People say, I get all these things from Twitter. You're dumb. Look how good Sweat is. Everybody misses the point on the Sweat deal. You could have had Sweat for nothing if you're going to pay him this ridiculous contract.
All right, Michael, and if this question is unfair, you can tell me, and I'll go on to something else. But which quarterback in this next draft, this coming spring, will have the best pro career?
Right now, I'm not really equipped to answer it, but I will say this. I think Drake May has a pro game. Here's what I have really, really focused on this year in terms of evaluation of quarterbacks is, are they likable? Does the team get along with them? Do they handle success well? Are they identifiable? Do they have a commonality with their teammates? I think it's really important. We saw it with Josh Dobbs. We see it with Tommy DeVito. Neither player are good enough, but the team believes it. We see it in Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett. I mean, Ben saying that the offense, that the Steelers are soft, I think is completely misrepresented. The Steelers aren't soft. They're not losing because they're soft. They're losing because Pickett's not good enough. And the reason they keep going down the Pickett road is because the team likes Pickett. They haven't quit on Pickett. Whereas in New Orleans, the team doesn't really like Carr. They're not sold on, because nobody likes Carr. They think Carr's they finally have come out and said it. They think Carr's not quite the leader that they thought he was going to be. So I think really understanding the character of the quarterback is so important. Is he an entitled guy? Does he put himself above the team? That's where you got to dig. I'm not going to take the media's word for Caleb Williams, but I'm going to do my own investigation on that to make sure that's true.
We've had two disappointing games of the year. Dallas at San Francisco at Philadelphia, both one-sided. I think the game in Orchard Park Sunday is going to be a heck of a game. Your thoughts, Dallas at Buffalo? I
do too, and I think both teams will move the football on one another. I think Dallas is getting a little undervalued here. I think Dallas will rush Josh Allen well. I think they'll create some problems, and it's on turf. I think you always got to play Dallas on turf. You got to be nervous with Dallas on grass, high grass too. They're not as fast. I think everybody's on Buffalo that I know. Everybody's on Buffalo. But this Cowboy team, the way they play from in front, the way they convert third downs, they could keep the ball for 36 minutes and make it really hard on Buffalo. Like, I didn't see Buffalo's offense really being any better than it has been. I mean, it's just really, Josh, go make a play.
Like, I know we talk about teams that have to win in win now mode. Buffalo certainly in that instance trying to make the playoffs right now, but have to and will isn't always the same thing. And the Cowboys are just playing really, really good football right now, especially offensively, what Dak's been able to do.
Well, I think McCarthy deserves a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
I think the rhythm he has as a play caller is tremendous.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.